for joining me here on Taya's Sweet Aroma. Today I am going to be sharing with you a recipe using my homemade pie crust. Now I recently shared the recipe with you for the crust, and so I decided that I wanted to show you one of the ways that I use this crust, and I thought, well, what better way to show you than with these mini pecan pies. And when you go over to my blog where I have all of my written recipes, you will notice that there will be two different steps to follow. So there will be one step where, for the big pie, where you could just make one big pecan pie. And then there'll be the steps for this recipe for the mini pecan pies. What I like a lot about the mini pecan pies is that they are very easy to assemble, but I usually make them in advance around the holiday time especially. And I'll bake them up, put them on a sheet pan, and put them in the freezer, allow them to freeze. Once they've frozen, I put them into an airtight container. And then when I'm ready to serve them, I take them out about 30 minutes to an hour in advance, allow them to come to room temperature. You can even slightly heat them up again in the oven on warm if you want it to serve them up a little warmer, but they stay fresh in the freezer, and that way it is one less dessert that you have to worry about on Thanksgiving Day. And so anyhow, it's very few ingredients. If you like pecan pies, I say give this recipe a try. I think you'll really enjoy it. And so let's go over the ingredients. What you will need for this recipe is some melted cooled butter, some pure vanilla extract, some salt, some dark brown sugar, eggs, granulated sugar, some pecans that I have chopped up, some corn syrup, as well as a pie dough. If you don't want to make your own, you can also use one from the store. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna line the muffin tins. As you can see, I have me a round cutter. If you don't have one, you can also use like a coffee cup. As long as it is about that size, you want it to kind of overlap the circle of your muffin tin, and that way you have room to kind of press it up along the edges. I'm gonna go ahead and get this dough ready so that we can roll it out. You can see all the nice little pockets of butter in there. Just adding a little flour. It was starting to stick to the counter. You don't want to add too much flour though. You don't want to dry out your dough. And if you start to see a little cracking, you just kind of manipulate it along the way. Just keep going until you get this nice and thin. Now this is about the size that I'm looking for here, about 1/4 inch thick. I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting some of my disc out. Now, once you have those rolled, do not throw this dough away because we're gonna go ahead and bring it back together to finish making enough to fill the 12 tins. So you just take each one. Let me show you, let me move these out the way. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking each of the little discs, and as you can see, it's about 1/4 inch thick. I put it into the muffin tin and I kind of press it just along the bottom really good, and then sort of stretch it out a little to go along the edges. Now I finished filling in all of the pie tins. I put the pan into the freezer so that way the pie crust can stay nice and cold. To start with the bowl, we're gonna go ahead and add in the eggs. Now to the eggs, I'm gonna add in the sugars and give this a nice whisk. I've been mixing this together for about a minute. Now we're gonna go ahead and add in the salt, the corn syrup, and the vanilla. finally, I'm gonna add in the butter. As you can see, everything's nice and incorporated. We can go ahead and move on to the next step. Now to each of the tins, I'm gonna go ahead and add some of the chopped pecans. If there's some pecans left, just go ahead and add them to some of the ones that have a little less. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take some of this filling and pour it over each of the tins. Okay, now that I'm done filling all of the tins, I'm gonna put them into the oven on the center rack. My oven has been preheating at 350 degrees, and I will show you what they look like when I return. What I'm doing now is just going along the edges with my butter knife in order to help some of them release. The ones that get a little bit of an overflow on them, they can stick a little, but just gently go, and then because there's so much butter and shortening in the crust, it usually releases pretty easily, as you can see. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the rest of these out. Okay, so that is all to it. As you can see, they are cute little mini pecan pies. I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a try. So buttery, and as you can see right here, the filling has set up very nicely. The crust is nice and just flaky. The pecans get kind of like this nice little crunchy toffee coating over them. So delicious. You have that really rich, creamy filling along with those crunchy pecans. And like I said, they kind of have like a really good toffee coating on them. They're nice and crunchy. You have the flakiness from the pie crust. Oh, I could just sit here and just eat all these by myself. Don't need no dinner. This is good enough. Anyhow, thank you for spending time with me today. And as I said before, if you wanted to make these ahead of time, you can go ahead and make them, allow them to cool at this stage, come to room temperature, and then place them in the freezer. When you're ready to serve them, take them out, allow them to sit at room temperature for about 30 minutes to an hour. You can even heat them again slightly if you want them a little warm. And I hope that you enjoy them, and thank you for spending time with me again today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.